What's up, man?
Not much. What's up with you?
Man, nothing big, man. Man, I started thinking earlier today, man, I don't know if I was make it or not, man. I'm just going crap all day. Maybe it's because I'm just getting
Practice?
just more customers. Nah, we had after, I mean, with high school, but you know, with the junior high, we have it on Mondays and Thursdays, but it's canceled now because of the heat.
Oh, y'all haven't been practicing because of the heat?
Yeah, man, it's crazy, man.
I mean, it's super.
Like growing up, like when you was playing football, like did you ever have any issues like that? Like,
I mean, yeah. So I mean, I'm 41. So I graduated high school in 2000. So my last high school, so my last high school football season was '99. High school football season. And my high school coach, like we said last week, was my father-in-law. It's kind of old school.
Yeah.
So we did the full-blown 2-a-days and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I grew up in New Orleans, so it was, we would try and go early in the morning, and then that second practice would be kind of late in the afternoon. But it still was hot. I mean, it's New Orleans, so I mean, it's always hot. It's always humid. First couple games of the year, we always kind of did a lot similar to what they do here in Oklahoma. Kind of have those built-in water breaks halfway through quarters and stuff like that. But I mean, still, and even when I was in college in Alabama, I mean, it still was hot. We still did 2-a-day, stuff like that. I remember the first couple. Now, obviously, college you got taken care of a little bit better.
right.
So we had IV tents and all that kind of stuff in between practices.
Wait, hold on. You got IV tents, bro? Like you go in there to get an IV?
Yeah. I mean, if you needed to.
Like I would think I needed one.
I did it once or twice, but like I said, I mean, playing quarterback, you kind of get babied a little, to be honest with you. But my college roommate Chip Long, when we were talking about this coach at Notre Dame, is at Louisville now. He used to get cramps and he played tight end when we were in college and kind of inside receiver, tight end, kind of / H-back. And he always needed them. He usually would have them. He'd usually get them at halftime, probably those first 2 or 3 weeks.
Right.
Because he would cramp real bad. A couple of our skilled guys. Big guys really didn't need them that much, and I never did. But yeah, it was always super hot, of course.
Right.
Because instead of New Orleans, it's always hot.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you got the humidity down there. And I mean, Alabama, we were in North Alabama, but still, at the end of the day, it's still kind of the South.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they took care of us as best they could. But I mean, when I was at North Alabama, we didn't have an indoor facility or any of that stuff. I mean, I know now all the big schools, when you get to college and stuff, sometimes if it's this hot, they'll move it indoors to the indoor facilities and things like that and kind of take care of players a little bit better. But
yeah,
I mean, not that player safety wasn't an issue back then, because it always has been an issue. But I mean, it wasn't talked about as much, and I mean, and all that kind of stuff like it is now too.
Just kind of the eye test. Oh, he don't look good.
Yeah, like, oh, he fell out. Let's yank him off or whatever else the case may be. So yeah, I mean, but yeah, now I don't ever remember it being 110 for 10 straight days or whatever it is going on now. It's been crazy, yeah.
Like we was talking about that a little bit today about like some schools. Who did Coach White said somebody? Who said? I think it was like no, it wasn't Coach White. It's Castro. He said I think he said Midwest City was starting practice at 5 o'clock in the morning now.
Wow. I mean, I get it. I mean, I saw Cash. I saw Cash had a post the other day, and I was talking to their play-by-play guy, Billy Palmer, for SN, and I saw that they were pushing practice back till 6 or 7.
Right.
To kind of stay out of it and things. I mean, that's the thing, too. A lot of schools now have that field turf, and I mean, that stuff just radiates heat.
Right.
So, I mean, if it's 105, 110, let's say, I mean, on that turf, on that field turf stuff, it's probably 125.
Right.
So, I mean, that makes it a little bit rougher, too, on the kids and things like that. So, but I don't ever remember it being this hot for this long. Right. I mean, 16, 17, 18-year-old kid, you don't care.
No.
I mean, you're hot, but I mean, you know how that is. You're
Man, you
young and
just
dumb.
know, yeah. I mean,
It's up to the adults. I mean, because if the kids are up to it, I mean, they'll sit out there and play all day.
yeah, it's like being hot on the flight line in Iraq. You know what I mean? Or Afghanistan, or in Iraq, definitely. You know what I mean? It's hot as shit out there.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of the same thing on the AstroTurf, Doug. It's hotter as shit.
Right. It's just, yeah. I mean, all those little black pellets and all that kind of stuff. I mean, all that just radiates heat. And
Right.
heat doesn't really, it just absorbs the heat. So it just kind of steams right on through it. And, like I said, I'm on all those things. I mean, you're looking at 125, probably, I would say 10 to 15 degrees higher.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. I mean, even next Friday. I mean, and I saw a bunch of teams this week push back their kicks to 8.
Yeah.
So I think MacArthur's doing that tomorrow. MacArthur actually plays tomorrow night. I think their kick is now at 8 rather than 7 to give it a little bit more time.
Right.
So that way the sun can go down and get out of there and all that kind of stuff. So I hadn't heard about if we're going to do that for September 1st or not yet, but I don't know what the next week's weather holds either.
Yeah. I don't know, man. What do you think? You think it's going to be like the new future, like for now on with the weather and stuff like that?
I don't know. I mean, I'm no scientist. I'm no weather person. I mean, I'd like to have that job because you can be wrong a lot.
Yeah. You get away with a lot.
Get away with
How many
it.
times you watch the news? Like, tornado, boy.
Right.
Oh, it's going to rain. It's going to rain. That's
So,
a good job, man.
yeah, you can kind of be wrong a decent amount, and
Like
people
50
get mad at you. Don't get me wrong, but
Hey, dog, 50-50 is good. Good.
hey, yeah. I mean, I love
You're rolling the dice.
Yeah, insurance. Like, I don't think it's gonna be covered, but we'll see.
If you was head coach right now of a football team, when would you rather practice? With the heat going on right now.
I'd probably keep it the same.
Yeah.
Just so, I mean, football's such a routine type environment, and that's the way coaches like it. So, I mean, you deviate from that plan with 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. I mean, then you don't know if they're all there. And so I would like to just get it done right after school's over. I mean, I know it's hot, but hey, look, guys, it's hot. Maybe cut it down some. I mean, the one thing that Elgin has that will help us hopefully this year is a lot of experience. So you got a bunch of experienced kids, like they already kind of know what they're doing. You're not doing a bunch of install and stuff like that. So, hey, give me a good solid hour and 15 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
And let's get this thing knocked out. I know it's hot, but let's fight through it and get it over with.
Yeah.
Would probably be. Now, I mean, I guess it also depends on the team you got. Like I said, for Elgin, maybe it's easier because you got a bunch of kids returning. If you got and we don't have a game this week. I mean, next week, a lot of teams have a week 0 game. So, I mean, you're preparing for your first game of the year. And if you got a bunch of new kids, a bunch of kids that you got some position battles and things like that. I mean, we might have to practice a little bit longer. So let's, change those times, whether we do it in the morning or we do it, and we push it back a little. The problem I see with pushing it back is you get 3 or 4 hours in between school and practice, and there's a lot of things that can happen in those 2 or 3 hours with a 16, 17-year-old kid.
Yeah, man, kids.
I mean, sometimes it's hard for kids to, get back. I mean, depending on the home situation, things like that. I mean, are they going to be able to make it back, or you're going to have to run around and go pick up a bunch of kids to get them back? And so, I mean, if you can keep it as routine as possible, I would do everything in my power to keep it normal. But then, like I said, I mean, if you see on Monday, if all the kids are dragging and you think that it's in your best interest, I mean, you got to adapt.
Right. Man, I don't know, man. I feel like, it'd be great is an indoor practice facility.
Oh yeah, yeah. Hey, anybody out there that's listening has a couple $1 million to donate?
Hey, let's get up,
we can get that in place. Because those things are great. I mean, for weather. I mean, for not only just the heat, but also snow, ice, wind. Rain. You just go inside and you're able to get a full practice in. I mean, some coaches do like every now and then, if it does rain, do like to get a couple rain practices in because you never know on a Friday. One thing that's changed too, I mean, about those rain games is not as bad as it used to be now because so many schools have the field turf.
Right.
Rain's really not that big of a factor because back in the day, I mean, when you had a rain game, I mean, the biggest issue was the mud, not necessarily the wetness. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit difficult to hold a wet ball and throw a wet ball and some of that type of stuff. But when it's wet and muddy, I mean, you have no idea. So now you kind of eliminate the mud, and it's not quite as bad.
But the groundskeeper hated that back in the day.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I mean, you would tear. I mean, if it was a rainy Friday, I mean, it would take everything in the power to get the thing ready for next week.
Yeah.
So in New Orleans, we didn't have a home field. There was not a lot of schools played at one kind of community field called Tad Gormley Stadium. New Orleans is a big city, but it's a small infrastructure for a big city.
Right.
So a lot of schools did not have their own separate stadium. So a lot of my high school games are actually played on Saturdays because of, they kind of, you had 7 or 8 teams that had to play in that one stadium. But it had actually, so what the Saints always did was they would pass along the turf. When the turf was 2 or 3 years old, it would get passed along to Tad Gormley. So I always played on turf in high school. That was the old school AstroTurf, so it wasn't as nice as that field turf is now.
So how does that work if it's reused though? They just peel it up.
They just peel it, yeah. I mean, they would just the dome peels up their field a decent amount because they have when the Final Four comes, when concerts comes, things like that. So they just kind of roll that up. So after 2 or 3 years of use, it would get repurposed and it would come to Tad Gormley. But I remember when we would play rain games, it used to be fun as heck. I mean, it would suck to play in the rain and try to throw the ball and all that kind of stuff. But when you would get tackled, I mean, this is the old school AstroTurf. So it was like you would just hydroplane for like 30 yards. So if it was like 3rd and 4, if you felt like 2 yards short, you might get the first down by like 12 yards if you had the wrong route.
Right.
But yeah, you get tackled, you'd hydroplane on that stuff for a good 10 or 15 yards.
Man, I've never played on turf, dog. Never. I just grew up playing on grass.
Yeah, I played on turf all through high school until I got to college. Both at Central Arkansas and North Alabama, they were grass fields. But when I was there, they ultimately changed down the road. But a lot of teams when we started to get that field turf, kind of my last couple of years of college, so it made it the field turf's a lot different, and the AstroTurf was just your old school grandmother's dining room carpet basically was what that was. Well, that field turf is basically grass to a certain degree, but all the rubber pellets and stuff like that in it. So it was interesting to see.
What's up, Chief? How you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
So, man, how about you?
So Jared Williams just showed up here to talk some Mal football with us. Jared, since you just showed up, let's just go ahead and explain who you are, what you do for the football, and kind of go from there, and then we'll just jump back into the conversation.
I really don't know how to describe what I do. I just try to be a person that if there's something that needs to be done, that's what I try to do. Growing up in Elgin and seeing the struggles of Elgin football, and there for a while we had a lot of changeover in coaches, and something struck me growing up and listening to that, and something my parents taught me. If we see people tearing coaches down, kids will never buy in, and so I've always viewed that as a challenge that we should support our coaches. And I'm not going to say I agree with everything the coaches do, and if I do disagree with them, that should be between me and them, not between me and my son and them. No, because our kids look to us as leadership first, as in a home, and so I believe that just supporting our coaches, to their face, to the public, having their back, and then getting that buy-in. And I think that's what we're seeing in Elgin right now, is some buy-in from the kids. We have the community buying in, and it's amazing that you can have happen when people buy in and believe, and that's how you go 8-3 off the 4-6 season.
Yeah, no doubt. What did you think about Bethany?
I'm sorry?
What did you think about the scrimmage?
I thought it looked good. I thought that we had some pretty good strengths. We knew that were coming, but I also saw some things that are coachable. And I think that's what you want to see in a scrimmage is you want to see some things that leaves the coaches room to be able to go back and keep the kids hungry. And I think that we saw that. Yeah. Not that those are negatives, but there's always room for improvement. And I think that's what we saw. We saw some conditioning issues. I think, which I think is expected early in the season. And everybody's going to be dealing with heat issues as we heat bubble over our head. But I think we saw a great effort. I think we saw our coaches continue to coach. One of my favorite things of the whole scrimmage, I believe it was the JV kids that were going, or the 9th grade team, and Coach Baker was pretty upset with some effort, and he brought them over, and he didn't cuss them, but he yelled at them, and I think that's important today. We got to have that good, hard coaching. And then he finished it with my most favorite thing, but I love you guys. And get back out there. And those kids know that, and that's something we see in all of our Elgin coaches, that love and passion for our kids. You're going to coach them hard, but love them harder.
Yeah. I mean, as far as scrimmage goes, things like that, I mean, the one thing that I saw, I mean, that I've seen a little bit of the film, wasn't up there, but talked to Coach Wyatt and then saw some of the film and things like that. I mean, we came out healthy, which was the most important part, especially for all your starters and kids that have been there for a while. Like I said, made some mistakes, but coachable mistakes. Right. You want to see them then rather than week 1 or week 4 when things really get going. But then also saw some flashes of what we're capable of. I mean, and then on top of it too, I mean, I think Coach Wyatt said maybe 9 different kids scored. Yeah. So I mean, that just kind of shows that it's no longer a one-man show, or it's no longer, if this one gets shut down, we're done. So I mean, I think all that went well. And then, like I said, the most important thing is they came out of there healthy. So I would expect this week you're not going to probably see some of the, kind of some fine-tune some couple things, see if they learn from those mistakes that were coachable. But you'll probably see a lot more of the younger kids to figure out who's going to be those next men up. If somebody get some of the older kids get hurt or things like that. So I mean, I think it went well. I think it was kind of what we expected. Like I said, knew we need some conditioning, but I think everybody's at that stage right now, and like I said, still encouraged, and I think it's going to be a fun ride for the rest of the year, based upon what we saw and what we anticipate.
Yeah. I agree with that. One thing, I got to agree with Jared, too. That was my favorite part of the scrimmage, too. I happened to I was walking up on that conversation, listening to what Coach Baker was talking about. And at the end of the day, it was just not everybody was hustling to the ball. And Coach Baker made a point, said, this is not our football. That's not how we play. That's not how this defense plays. And, I was getting goosebumps listening to him. I was like, put me in, Coach. Let's do this.
If your emphasis is on creating more turnovers, and that's the biggest thing that supposedly the defense has worked on all off season and all, rallying to the football and doing those things is a big component of that. Because if you're not hustling to the ball and that ball comes out, then you're not going to fall on top of it. So I mean, that it's all, like I said, but ending it with the "I love you" is how they mostly all end. And that just shows what we talked about last week. I mean, how much they care about the kids and how much the kids care about them, and how it's just kind of one big family. And it's exciting and fun to be around, because we talked about this a little. I mean, it's good coaches, good parents, and good kids. I mean, and then they turn out to be a good team, right? Which all that is the reason why they are a good team, but that makes it more fun, kind of as an outsider to be a part of and to grow with. That makes it cool.
I think you just made an interesting statement, and I hear this a lot. We hear people say outsiders. I don't know that Elgin is outsiders. I mean, we're Elgin, and I think that's something that we're seeing our kids embrace. So there's no doubt there's some people who aren't from here, right? And maybe the people who are from here that still have that us and them. And I think it's safe to say I'm from here. I'm third generation. Both my grandparents are here. My parents are here. My wife's parents are here, and I just want to say we welcome everybody to Elgin, and I think that's important. The more we see our team and community embrace that, the more we're going to be a tight-knit community that I did grow up loving in 2A Elgin and loving that, but we can still have that same school spirit and community spirit, and we don't have to say somebody's an outsider anymore.
There you go.
So you said 2A, just made me think of it, and I was going to bring this up, but so Bethany, they was 2A state champs in 2003.
I don't know. They're what now? 4A? They're pretty.
Yeah, they're 4A.
Yeah.
We were in the same district as them 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Yeah.
And they're still in the 4A district. Pretty tough 4A district. And I think that's really one of the things that I think our kids helped us last year is they were battle tested in that 4A district that they were in. Right. When you look at the 4A teams they were playing, you had Clinton, you had Weatherford, you had Elk City, who Elk City was a very similar situation as Elgin was 2 years before that. They went over 2 years in a row, and then they came in, I think my son's freshman year, and they put it on us. And some of the best compliments and best advice we got was from their radio team up in the booth, and they said, "You guys hang on. We didn't lose a single kid off of 2 0-10 teams."
Yeah.
And they turned it around, and they're a state contender. Made a state championship
They were
against
in the state
Clinton.
championship last year.
And so I think that is something that we didn't do that. We had kids that were battle tested.
Yeah.
They played against those style of teams. There's a nucleus of this team that's been together for a long time, and I think we're seeing the rewards of that, of good parents that allowed Little League coaches do what they needed to, and then we turn them over to the best coaching staff in Oklahoma.
Talk about kind of going back to that. Talk about that. It's like because I know I've seen pictures on things, stuff like that. I mean, when did some of these kids start playing together?
When you look at the senior class and junior class,
Yeah.
and really you can look at the ones younger than that too, because it was happening behind them. But if you look at Lund, you look at Peyton Christensen, they were some of our older kids, and I say our older kids.
Right.
Ryan Donnelly was our head coach. He taught me into assisting. We brought Jace out. Jace, I think Colin started and Shay started their kindergarten year.
Okay.
Jace, I wouldn't let him play until he could get in a stance, and I didn't have to help him up off the ground. And, I got tired of soccer, and so we worked on that really hard. And I'm not a soccer guy. Soccer's a good sport. It's just not the Williams family sport.
You made a good choice for your son, sir.
And so I joined him when Jace was in first grade, and you got George Tadenippa that's in there. Trace came out a year or two later, and Curtis stood on the sidelines for a year or two, and he figured out that I was not an offensive coordinator, and we finally got him out, and we just saw these kids grow together, and then we added in the Crabtrees.
Yeah.
You add in Hunter Jackson.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave a few off, and I'm going to parents upset, but you add in Kobe Morton, and you just talk about a group of kids that pulled together. I'm going to say they lost less than 5 games in Little League all the way through. I've seen kids that they knew how to win, and that was something different for Elgin. They never were out of anything. Ryan Donnelly is probably the best motivational coach I've seen.
100%.
Obviously, he's Elgin's biggest fan, but we had hard laps. And at the end of practice, we'd run them, and we ran them like that we were ran. When Coach Hitt was our offensive line coach, and when Ryan and I played together, and then not hard laps, pride laps, Ryan would run those kids in a pride lap after the game or after practice. So it may be 1, it may be 3, it may be 5. And I think he built something in them that they don't quit.
Yeah.
There is no quit in any of those kids. I look at Colin, and I know how well, how much tape was holding him together last season.
Yeah.
And playing with pain and giving it all for that team. Like I look at Trace Laura, who's been reading an offense since he was a third grader and has probably a higher football IQ than any of us in this room, except maybe you. but he is a coach on that field.
Yeah.
And, when Curtis started coaching with us, I mean, it was such a cool thing to have. Man, it was a high school coach for a while.
Right.
Now he's a principal.
Right.
And these kids, they're running the same foundation offense.
Yep.
That's where I think this continuity has come. And then it caught on the rest of the Little League teams. And we came from a time where Little League was a little disorganized. They had lots of different colors, lots of different team names. We brought something back that was brought here in the 80s by Coach August Dietz when he came in. Okay. We were the Elgin Owls, and he brought in the War Owls in. We brought the War Owls back to Little League, something to bring back a little bit of pride in what's going on. And we kicked all the other colors out, and we went back to foundation colors of Elgin, red, white. We threw a little black in there because there's nothing wrong with a little black.
Right.
And we restored some pride. And then some things that came in when Coach Flowers was here, which was my high school coach, and he ended up retiring out of Texas, and he's living back in Oklahoma now. There's a little AKA swagger walking around the hallways, and we're seeing some of that again. And it's really some pride coming back into our kids.
Well, and that's how you build a program.
Right.
I mean, when you start from, I mean, my wife's the first and second grade cheerleading coach now.
Right.
But all the Little League guys, their first games are going to be this Saturday. I mean, when you see them play, I mean, like you said, they're running the same offense. Coach Rouse coaching the first and second grade team, and he's a varsity coach and also the wrestling coach. I mean, a lot of the stuff that Coach White's teaching the seniors are starting to get implemented as early as first grade. Yeah. And when that happens, you build a program. That might not necessarily be the same exact name of the play, but when those kids are 7th, 8th grade, 9th grade, starting to look and smell, I'm going to be practicing with the big boys, now all of a sudden they know the foundation. They know what's expected of them, first of all, but then also, this is the same play I've been running since I'm, in first grade. And it makes it a whole lot easier, and it makes the whole next man up if somebody gets hurt a whole lot easier. And that's why you saw success from the Brody Morrisons or, those kids that were freshmen. I mean, Brody Morrison, Rich and I, or some of those guys, was because, I know they kind of moved in later, but it was because of there was already a foundation set in those kids that are moving up now from those 7th and 8th grade teams. They're running the same offense, they're running the same defense, they're doing things that are expected of the varsity kids. So when they get there, it's not shock and awe. It's, okay, this is football. They're just a little bit bigger, maybe a little bit faster,
right.
But it's the same thing I've been doing. Yeah. And that's when you start building a program, and that's when you start becoming successful. Because when you have a fractioned type deal, and this little league coach is running spread, and this one's running triple option, then that's just you're asking for trouble.
Well, one thing that coaching little league, I also coached Ron Donnelly. He with Brody. So it was my 6th grade year, coaching 6th grade. Brody was there, Ron was there. We just try to keep it as similar as we could. Plus, we had Maddox Muller on the team, so we had Louis helping us coach. That was the year I broke my leg. So I was riding my son's dirt bike, of all things. It was like a 90cc or something, broke my leg. Horrible idea. But anyways, just kind of built, like you said, foundation going from there. Justin Roderick, he was the team under me. He started picking up on some of it. The same thing was kind of, hey, running for the high school. Let's get them set up for what they're doing in the future. Now, they're running some of the defenses play that we run for the high school. You know what I mean? So what's that translate to? When they come into 7th grade, we can progress a little faster. You know what I mean? So let's start teach them some different stunts and go from there.
Well, you brought up something great. I don't know if it was last week or just when us hanging out and things like that, that Coach Wyatt met with all of the coaches.
Yeah.
So that's also telling those young coaches, the guys that are coaching the younger kids, like he's bought in too.
Right.
He's not, I know he's from here and things like that, and this is home, but he's bought in. He's bought into the future of the program as well. So it's not just, I don't care about y'all. I'm the high school coach, and y'all do whatever the hell y'all want, and things like that. So when that goes on, that shows that he means well, and that he's going to be here for potentially a long haul, but it also means that he's bought in and knows that is how you build a program and things like that.
That's his future at the end of the day. It is what it is. You know what I mean?
I think we ought to mention a couple other kids. I don't want to be that guy that left them out. So I got my picture. Adam Eaton, and talk about a kid who's had a tremendous offseason and probably the biggest growth, height and physical. I think that he looks like he's going to be a force to be dealt with this year. Going to play some tight end.
He's going to play some tight end and maybe relieve some Jack and Shay on the outside there at the defensive end spot. They're really, really, like you said, I don't know what the growth spurt was, but I went to practice the other day, and I didn't recognize the kid and was like, who is that?
Yeah, and great family.
Yeah.
Mom and dad are good people. They've been with us all the way through Little League, and I'm just excited for Adam and to see what he can do, because he was always that kid that he's very athletic, very fast. They came to us from Alaska. Dad was military, and we teased him about him running on the icebergs up there. He was a cross-country runner originally when he got here.
Wow.
We brought him into football, and really, really proud to see Adam grow. And then
I think he can provide something different from that tight end spot. And then I think if he can progress too, that'll also help Andre and Colin out on the defensive side of the ball, so they can rest some on offense. Because you need both of those guys on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah, they help a ton on offense, don't get me wrong. But we need, especially Colin, you absolutely 100% need him every single play on defense, just about. So that could help keep Colin kind of fresh throughout the entire game and things like that.
I think another one, Tristan Kephart, he provides some good depth on the offensive line, and he was with us all the way back in Little League. His mom, Amber, brought him in, and just really good kids. And I look back on that Little League, I talked about the coaches, but we had some parents that they just let us do what we needed to do, and I had a little bit of college experience. Obviously, we had Curtis there, and the best motivator around is our head coach. And so we didn't coach them like little kids. We coached them like we were getting ready to play high school or college football, and those kids bought into that. And I think, if you look at, I think we had the best offensive line coach, offensive coordinator around.
Yeah.
But I think they were taught some fundamental things back then that Coach Castro has been able to build on. And, there was a lot of people that always complain about holding, but you ain't holding if you ain't getting called. and they learned that at a young age, and we put our hands on the steering wheel. As the old saying goes,
there's holding on every single play. You just got to find it.
They put their hands on the steering wheel, and they've been driving people for a long time. And it's just fun to see these kids mature into who they are, and watching Shay, watching Jace, and Colin, Trace. It's just a blast to know that, we had a little piece of that, but really – we didn't have a big piece. Those kids, that talent's there, and those kids are earning that every day by working hard.
Right. One of the things that I like about, I talked about it with you a little bit, is like your future, not your future, your past here. You're being from Elgin and stuff. Can you talk about maybe some of the big changes you've noticed in football now versus the past, even starting from when you played? You know what I mean?
We were 2A whenever I played, and we were playing Hobart. We were going to Mangum. We were lots of small towns around here, and Apache was always a big rivalry game for us. Apache, they weren't in the same district. They were Class A, but you'd always start the season off with an Apache. And Cash was small like us back then. It's always good to beat a Bulldog, and we got to beat the Warriors week 1, but we always look forward to week 2 with Cash coming up. But I just look back to the old field house. The bleachers, and thinking about the hours put in on that field, looking back at where the practice field used to be. We have a beautiful high school where we would go to practice, and thinking about that, and then transitioning and having the ability. Coach Hitt was here. Coach Flowers, our head coach. Miles Thompson was the defensive coordinator. Coach Abbott, who's over at Cash now, came in my senior year, and just having a group of guys. Keith Mullins, he's retired now. He was an assistant and his baseball coach, and all these guys that to me, that invested in us and kind of brought Elgin into where it was, and saw some success after I graduated, and they made the playoff for a year or two, and you had Donnelly in them, and you had Bailey Blue as a quarterback. Brian Bagley, his son Hudson's going to probably see some time this year as a freshman. We're seeing that investment from the people that invested then, and now we're starting to see that second and third generation of football. And I think that's one of the things Elgin's been missing is we had no history. We had none of that. And so now that, my dad graduated here in 73, there was no football. We didn't get football till the early 80s. And so I'm the first person to play football at Elgin, play football in my family. And now my son's in second generation, and seeing and building something at Elgin. And I think that's important, seeing that build. And then you transition to having a school administration that supports us like it does. Look at the facilities we have, the new field house, and the turf. A lot of people were against turf whenever it came in, and that just that lack of understanding of what the need was. When you start looking, we have a 6th grade or 7th grade team, 8th grade team, a freshman team, a JV, and a varsity. There's as many as 5 and 6 games a week on that. Then you bring our band in. We have one of the best bands in Oklahoma, not just Southwest Oklahoma. They deserve time to get out there and practice their craft on that. We have soccer being offered now. A grass field can't survive under those conditions. And so it wasn't any more of a want. It was a true need for us to be successful, for all those kids, to be successful. So I think seeing that, obviously we all laugh and joke. We got our first stoplight, but, we're a 5A high school and still, I think, in a 2A town. And our town's growing. And, but I think that's one of the things we struggle a little bit is supporting a team the way that a larger community would. And I'm not sitting here begging for money as the Booster Club president, but there's a different fundraising levels that people are able to accomplish in larger communities when you're playing against a Midwest city You're
Right.
playing against the Carl
But
Albert. You're playing against these Chickasha and Anadarko when you start looking at the town size versus Elgin. So we have our challenges, but I think we also have our advantages of our community, that close knit that pulls together. And you better get there early if you're going to get a seat on Friday night because it's going to fill up.
It's going to fill up quick. But no, I get that. Being a State Farm agent and things like that, I mean, we travel around the state with other State Farm agents and things like that. When we have state meetings and regional meetings and things. And so over the years, a lot of them have known that I do the football stuff and do the commentating stuff and things. And so there's some other guys that are State Farm agents that also do it. The Elk City guy's son is going to be a senior this year. He's the sideline reporter for them, and some other people like that. So, we start talking about things, and they're like, "How is Elgin? I mean, I've been to Elgin. How are they a 5A school now?" And you're like, "Well, the population of the school kind of dictates all that type of stuff." But yeah, like you said, we are a town. If you come here, would never think that we can handle that. And I think the town is growing. Obviously, it is, and for us to be now a 5A school. But I mean, like you said, I mean the fundraising side of things. I mean, I think it helps a ton to that. And we talked about this. I don't know if we talked about it last week, but we talked about this on air a couple games last year. I mean, you're talking about an administrator that's an old coach. Superintendent's kind of an old sports guy. Principal's an old football coach. I mean, all the AD, obviously, most of the time, athletic director has some sort of ties to sports, but all those guys are also bought in to the athletic side of things. Obviously, we're a great school too, and a great school system. So I mean, school, all that comes first.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you also have some guys that are bought in that want to see football succeed, baseball succeed, basketball succeed, and all that kind of stuff as well. So that kind of ties in, and I know Coach Wyatt and I have talked about it multiple times. I mean, he's working for a principal who was his coach. He's working for Mraz, who he's known since he's a kid and knows that he's a sports type guy. So he doesn't have to necessarily explain himself when he says, we need new shoots, we need new some of that type of stuff. They understand like some of the importance of that stuff. So I mean that goes a long way, and that's part of the buy-in that we've kind of been talking about so far this week.
No, I mean that's one of the big things I love about Elgin is it got a small town feel to it, right? But we are 5A. You know what I mean? Because I come from a small town. Coming here in Elgin feels like a small town to me, but man, it's a 5A school, And when we showed last year, moving the football. I mean, we did it with wrestling, we did it with football. We made a statement last year. You know what I mean? We didn't get what we wanted in football, but we definitely made a damn statement. You know what I mean?
Took a big step ahead, and for a lot of us that have been looking at it, kind of felt it might have been a year early. And I don't want to diminish our kids last year, but
I would agree.
This is the year to me I've had circled for a while. This is that little league team that we knew we had good stuff coming behind us to help. But this was our up year when we were in Little League. Yeah, we had this group of kids together.
I would agree with you. I mean, coming in, you saw the Traces and Jaces and all those guys play a lot as freshmen. So you're like, okay, now this year they're moving up to 5A. Okay, it's going to be a little bit tougher. But we talked about that a little bit preseason last year. This is a good 5A district, don't get me wrong, but that 4A district that they were in might be top to bottom the toughest district in the entire state. When you're talking about the Elk Cities, the Clintons, the Weatherfords, the Cashes, the Elgins, and all that kind of thing. And then Bethany got joined in there at one point as well. So, okay, yeah, they were battle tested as freshmen in that big old 4A. And then you start looking at it and you go, okay, yeah, Midwest City is up there. Mac is up there. Right. But some of those Arena, some of those guys that were kind of in that bottom tier, you were like, they might have been 5 and 6 in that 4A district. So you kind of thought, okay, I mean, we may have a chance here to get. I mean, I know talking to some people prior to the season last year, okay, we can maybe get to that 4. Mm-hmm. We can maybe get in there. And like you said, so that's why I think
the games out there.
You circle the game, go, okay, I think we can maybe get to that 4. And then, like you said, everybody's freshmen and sophomores, and then or juniors, and they're going to move up, yada, yada, yada. But so I think it did happen a little bit a year early. That's why, like I said, it's super exciting this year with the experience that they had 2 years ago and being 4 and 6 or whatever that number was, to now getting 8 and 3, and now they've got a taste of that Guthrie. And I know talking to a lot of kids, that's an ugly taste. So they don't want it to end there anymore. And I mean, OSN had their coaches show last night, and the best answer of the whole night. So they asked, I think it was Trey Crabtree.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw it or not.
He asked him, what games
do you have circled on the schedule? Because, y'all had a tough loss at Noble. You had the Guthrie deal. MacArthur was a crazy win. And he said December 3rd. And Eric Sharam said December 3rd and had to think about it for a second. And that's the state championship day.
Yeah.
And so that's where their mindset is. And yeah, the old football, every week is next most important. That answer was probably the best answer, other than potentially maybe saying September 1st, because that was the first game. And Eric kind of played that and said, don't give me that September 1st game. But for him to mentally know that date, obviously it's been discussed throughout. So now we know what they're working towards and what their goals are. Right. And that's part of the reason 95% of the kids didn't miss a day. Had ridiculous attendance for the off-season program, and Trace Laura didn't miss a day, and all that. That shows where their mindset is and where the coach's mindset is as well, for the kids to follow that. And that's exciting. That's super exciting, because a 17-year-old kid is going to say cash, because that's the big, or we lost to Noble, so Noble.
Because it was such a fun
such a crazy game and things like that, or Midwest City, because but for him to go to that extent, it was like, okay, and didn't bat an eye about it. It wasn't just ha ha ha. It was full focused, and then they asked him another question about the offense and this, that, and the other, and being a receiver, and he answered it like a seasoned pro of
very, very
if I'm covered, then that means Mike's open, and Tracy's got to get the ball to Mike, and we're all cool with that because we all love each other, and we've all known each other since we're 6 years old. So that to me was kind of like, okay, we can say bought in and all this kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, if you're going to sit there in front of a mic and say all that kind of stuff, you truly are, in my opinion. So that was really, really cool to see and listen to.
No, that was awesome that you brought that up, because at the end of practice today, when Chalmers was talking to the football players, he brought that up, and he said that gave me chills when he said that.
Yeah. I text Charlie right after. It was like, that was unbelievable. The best answer of the night. And he was like, yeah,
that's it.
I'm with it, bro.
That's it.
I think that's one thing about this bunch. They're special, and and I don't want to set them up for too much success or too much failure, but they're not going to be remembered by that last game, whether it is a win or a loss.
Right.
There's every team starts out, that is the same goal. And when you look at the caliber of kids that this group is, we haven't talked about Keith Ferguson much in there, but Keith didn't play Little League with us, but he's been here with us the whole time. Right. And, kind of figured football out late. In 8th grade, he comes in and starts as a freshman. And I remember laughing about Keith going, he's starting as a freshman. He's still really trying to figure out how to put his pads on. And,
it's no different than Sola.
Yeah, that's the group of kids. And that's why I say, I hope we are there, and I think they definitely have the ability to be there, but that won't define this group of kids, but the character that they have.
But going back to Keith, if you guys didn't do what you potentially did in that group coming up, Keith would have never went for football. What I'm saying?
And that's what Keith is with us all the way through, and
right. But I don't think
baseball and t-ball and coach pitch, and,
right. But I don't think if that
the nucleus
wasn't there, I don't think he would have stepped into that. And that shows. And like Wyatt said, Coach Wyatt said last night. At Asola, he was walking around the hallways, and y'all don't have a soccer team, no, but I got something to do during the fall, and now he's turned out to be, a great receiver and a great guy. And
he's the
in the corner,
the catch.
Yeah, the catch.
Yes. You brought that up. One thing I want to talk to y'all about is and if it's the same team for each, it doesn't matter, or same game. What's one of your most memorable games from last year? The game that stood out to you the most for whatever reason?
I'm going to say Ardmore. To me, Ardmore was when I remember walking around. I get to be the guy that gets crazy and everybody hears him at the game. Vince, I go back and listen to the game afterwards. I get to hear Vince yelling. But I remember sitting there during the game watching Ardmore going, what is going on?
Yeah.
And knowing, looking back at that schedule, really, we got a chance to make the playoffs and walking down on the field and finding Coach Castro, finding Coach Wyatt, and just asking them what just happened. And I remember talking to Coach Rowell afterwards. He goes, Jared, you should have seen the locker room. He said, it was different. I've never seen our locker room like that. They were locked in. They were focused. He said, all of us as coaches were like, something's fixing to happen. And it did. And to me, it was Ardmore. That was the one that I don't know if I think the belief was in the locker room. And here I am as a dad. And I don't know that I was believing where I should.
Right.
But after Ardmore, I believed anything was possible.
Yeah.
That's a program that it's well respected around the state. They had a D1 quarterback. And our kids went out there and he didn't shine real well.
No.
And our defense played. Coach Baker coming back and I love Coach Grigg. I can still talk to him up in Shiloh, but Coach Baker coming back and what he's brought to the defense and just that edge that they have and the buy-in and then that it's just complimented Coach Castro with what they're doing. And I just think you saw, to me, everything firing at Ardmore. And I just saw them move forward from that. And and again, I think it'd be easy. You can talk about it's always good to beat Cash, to catch it, Mac, but Ardmore to me was a turning point. That may have been my favorite game last season.
Yeah. Mine was Ardmore was great, and Ardmore was kind of like, okay, are we for real? But I think mine ultimately was Duncan. There was just something different about that one. And I don't know what it was. I mean, Duncan was supposed to be pretty good. I mean, Ardmore had a lot of success and things like that, but Ardmore the week before had, I don't know if they lost to maybe Weatherford or something like that.
They were down.
They were down a little, and so
there were some questions.
Yeah, Weatherford was kind of there were several games throughout the whole league. Weatherford was like, whoa, okay, what's going on here? Because, Weatherford's, a big power and all that kind of stuff. And then Ardmore rolled in, and like I said, then you kind of looked back at it and said, okay, well, we beat the heck out of Weatherford. Ardmore, had to beat them maybe with a 2-point conversion, something crazy. And then Duncan rolled in. And I think Duncan might have been homecoming or something.
Yeah, it was a bigger game. It was a name game.
And that's when it was like, okay, we've got a chance now because the way that the schedule was lining up and some things like that. That one I think maybe almost guaranteed that, because like I said, going into the season, it was you got a tough stretch at the end. Maybe we can get into that 4 spot. Like I said, didn't know Coach Wyatt, didn't know outside, I lived here, but I did Cash before, had known some Elgin, things like that. So looking at the schedule, looking at some things, talking to some, guys that say they know a lot about what was going to happen. So, hey, you guys may be able to get to that 4 spot if, Laura comes along and Lund runs like he has in the past, some of that type of stuff. So that one was like, okay, hey, we're beyond this 4 spot now. We got a chance to go get the whole thing because some other things had happened earlier in the year where Mac had maybe slipped up to somebody that we had beat pretty good. So it was like, okay, we can contend with Mac and Midwest City. Yeah, we'll see. That's the last game of the year. So let's get us there. So I think, to me, it was the Duncan one where we did. And here's why Duncan, to me, other than the Ardmore was great. But Ardmore, we played out of our minds.
Yeah.
Duncan, we didn't play very good and still beat them fairly handily.
They learned to dig deep that game and really beg and crawl back into it. Yeah,
they begged and crawled back into it and really didn't play that good and then ultimately pulled away towards the end where it was like, okay, they have the comeback in them. They have the fortitude, I guess you could say, or whatnot. And then we're winning and we're not even playing our best ball.
Right.
Up until that point, we had basically played almost flawlessly. And then all of a sudden, we played a not very good game if you look back at it. And I remember going to Coach White's house after the game, and being like, and both of us, kind of going, that was not pretty, but we won, and we won pretty good against a pretty darn good football team.
Right.
And that's when it was kind of like, we got a chance, and we're good to go.
Yeah.
And then even the Noble one, the Noble was a loss, but I mean, Noble was playing out of their mind that night. That receiver was doing things that
he probably never did again.
Right, that were ridiculous. And we played by far our worst game of the year, and 4 minutes left in the game, we're going down, getting ready to tie the thing.
Yeah,
so that, like I said, sucked that we lost. Don't get me wrong, but that game too also was like, we didn't do anything right that whole entire game, but we were in it until basically a minute and a half, 2 minutes left in the game.
Right.
And again, that was a good football team that we were contending again. So those two were kind of eye openers to me.
We probably don't want to rehash the whole season, but I like El Reno also.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think, when you look at that, I think we walked into that game expecting, hey, we're up, we're going to win. But I think in hindsight, that win was a much better win than we realized the more it went on.
Because El Reno, we talked about that last week. Yes, getting back into the thing. Like I said, leaving that game, it was like,
yeah, we should have won it.
Yeah, we should have won that one, no big deal. And then, like I said, kind of seeing the end results of kind of the way everything happened.
Right.
And and El Reno playing their way into one of those playoff spots. I mean, like I said, that was.
Yeah. I think my biggest one is kind of it was a great game, the MAC game. Obviously, that was my biggest one.
That was really fun.
There was I was just having a bad.
Depending where you're standing.
Yeah, for Jason,
I was a little worried.
For Jason, not necessarily too. We kind of talked about that a little last week.
Yeah, that was a tough one for Jace, but for me personally, it was a good game. I was just kind of in a funk personally, you know what I mean? And then after. Watching that game, the catch was a big deal. Just the excitement, the crowd. Then pretty much, shortly after that, I don't know if you remember, Jared. That's that's when I got saved. Pretty much, and then I got baptized a week later. After that, I was just having a bad time, and I was just in a rough patch. And then I was kind of talking about talking to God. Give me a sign. Whatever. I'm not saying it's all related, but to me at the time it was. I'm sitting there in the stands, watched it, and I was like, He got it. I don't know. It just kind of picked me up. It was to lift me up. I needed it at that time. Then I can remember the day I got saved. I talked to Jesse. Which just a little background. Me and Jared and Jesse. Jared does the announcing, and it's me and Jesse up there running the clock and the play clock. And so we just I've been working with them for a little bit, and then I went to church that day. Just me, went by myself, and then. I was like, man, I went. And as soon as I was done, I went to the field house and I seen the high school coaches there. And it's like, yeah, man, I just got saved, man. And there's and Chalmers looked at me and he said, did you really? Like it was just kind of a weird thing to come in, and I get it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he's like, did you? I said, yeah, I really did. He said, welcome to the family. Congratulations.
And I think the coaches and Coach Ralph touched on it a little bit about that locker room, what it looked like. That's what Derek looked like Sunday coming into church. I think he knew he was on a mission coming into church that day. Because it was we sat together a lot or near each other, and you could see him. There was a focus and intent that day at church, and it was cool.
Yeah, man.
That game is that one speaks for itself. Obviously you got way different reasons, and that's about as good as it gets there. But on the football side of things, like I said, that game was a microcosm of the entire season.
Right.
Of the fight, of the willingness to come back and things like that, and then at the end, just.
Okay, so outside of the catch,
we all lost.
What was your outside of the catch? What was your favorite play of that game?
Mine. We talked about this last week. Nobody really talks about that. The fourth down catch by Mike.
And I heard that
on the curl.
Yeah,
that one was absolutely huge.
I think Trace's touchdown run.
The
one before that, and it just kind of
it said we're back, we're here, and we're. All the momentum at that point. And the one great thing about that game was and we talk about, oh, we're a small community and this, that, and the other. We had more people there probably than Mac did.
Yes.
Even though it was in Lawton. And then when we did that, so where we are, we're right above all the Mac stands. So I can directly see Elgin losing their shit. And I can directly see below me, and I'm talking about Trace's touchdown at this point, directly below me, I can see MacArthur basically die.
Yeah.
And then we're in the booth next to us because MacArthur's an OSN school too. In the booth next to us, Eric Sharam is play-by-play guy, and he runs basically there. And Jay Burke, who's also. So I'm knocking on the worst part about it is too. What's the brothers that played at SWASU that played at Elgin a couple years ago? What's the last centers? I can't think of their last name. Bolt, no. There's two brothers. Wasn't there two brothers?
No, I think you're thinking he's coaching at Mac now, basketball.
Okay, who's that?
Braden.
No. It was an offensive lineman from Elgin from like the Renshaw day, maybe.
There's several of them at SNU
that
were brothers.
No. Okay, so their computer guy is an Elgin kid. And I'm remiss that I can't think of his name right now. And I hate that I can't. So I run over because they're running back and forth. So we're directly next to each other. So every now and then they run back. And Eric kind of told me in the year, like, oh, 5A is going to be tough for you guys, Yeah. But when I was like, hey, look, I'm going back to Elgin because I want to go home. My kids go to school there. I mean, Cash has been fun. I had a great relationship with Coach Frank Griffin and all that kind of stuff. But I said, and he was like, well, y'all go to 5A now. And I mean, that's going to be some tough games. And I was like, I get it. It is what it is,
Right.
I'm going. So in the back of my mind, I'm sitting there going, you said a couple of 10 weeks ago that this was going to be a tough game, and things like that. But so he's doing the computer. Like I said, I can't. Bulick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said Braden is not. I know that. Yeah, Bulick.
Okay, so he looks over at me and was like,
Braden.
He kind of gives me the old thumbs up when I ran in there. Was like, it's a game now, boys. And then after, so that game was just absolutely incredible. Just the way everything transpired. And then, like I said, it started to rain a little, and I remember coming to you after the game when we were waiting on the buses and things like that, and being like, whoa, what do we...
Some of the things I do. One of the other things I do is I help Ashley on the sidelines on the away games.
Yeah.
Being a firefighter and my EMT skills. And part of that is to keep me from turning into something in the stands I don't need to. Right. So if I'm standing on the sideline, I can't do that. So I find things to occupy me so I don't become that dad that's hovering or yelling. And so... you mentioned our school administrators, and it is so fun to watch Curtis and Nate on the sidelines because they get into the game, and Matt may have been the best one because they're 3 and 4 yards on the field, farther out than some of the coaches sometimes after the scores, and they're pulling each other back, they're celebrating the wins, and when you see school administrators buying in and investing in the team, things are going well for your town.
And that's where that came in, because we interviewed Nate at halftime during that game. And I think it was either in the first half or the second half. The referees made a mistake. There was a personal foul penalty. I believe it was either on us or them or something like that. And they marked it off from the beginning of the run or something rather than the end of they made a huge mistake.
Right.
Coach Wyatt, Coach Baker, all them kind of thought they did, but they're so focused on that situation that they weren't in tune to that. So I was in the box going, wait, this ain't right, whatever. But, Nate and Curtis were down there absolutely losing it. And like I said, we're on the field basically, and I was going,
we're going to have to get them a get back coach every now and then.
And, I'm going, I'm right. Because there's no way that those two old football coaches are okay with this. Because, they marked it off wrong. So it pushed us to where we should have had the first down. The way that it ended, and like I said, I mean, thinking about 10 months ago, but I mean, the way that it ended or whatnot, it should have been a first down, but then they ultimately marked it off way beyond, so it made it like 3rd and 50 something when it should have been a first down and whatever else. So and Curtis, and that was the game that we were like, okay, they're completely bought in too. And when Trey scored those touchdowns,
Curtis and his fist bumping. I might have had that as my Facebook page for a while.
And those guys didn't have to be in the box, so they were on like the 3-yard line watching it right there. So, and that's awesome to see because I mean. Like I said, I mean, Curtis being the high school principal and his kid being the quarterback, I mean, that's got to be fun for him. And I mean, I know all those guys, Curtis is an old football guy and he's got some sons that play too and things like that, but that's got to be an awesome kind of feeling.
There's 2 boys in that team and they're still there. And they, I think that's the new thing. Everybody's got a cricket and they make shirts. And Jason Keith, they love this run left.
Yeah.
And that was kind of neat for me to get to sit back as a dad of one of them. And when that game was on the line, they tucked it in behind a junior and a sophomore. Yeah. And Trace was able to bear down. And, mine was hurting pretty bad from multiple things. Getting stomped on and then having to send his mama back up in the stands. I think she was ready to go play. And, you don't mess with Mama Bear. And,
right.
But, see them pull through and the team pull through. And there's not a bigger kid that was cheering for him than Keith. And they have a special relationship. And, it's going to be fun to see them run left or counter right. They got a shirt that says that.
Yeah, the shirt. Yeah, they one of them wore it to meet the Owls. Yeah, that was good stuff there.
That's one thing I wanted to talk to you about, Jared. Is meet the Owls. What was your? How did you think that went? What's your?
I thought it was great. It was our first time to do it, and I'm very cautious every to say something's a first annual. You can have a first one, but it's not an annual until you do it twice.
Yeah.
And, we didn't have a home scrimmage this year, and. Go back 2 years ago, water and Gatorade sales and the donations of people bringing water and Gatorade in. And we love the businesses and the support from, Vince buys in and everything. And we never have to question that. And he's there with that. But, 2 years ago, 3 years, I guess 3 years ago before we did this, that was one of our larger expenditures as a quarterback club is we're spending $5,000 a year on buying drinks. And so we kind of did this out of we didn't have a home scrimmage. Well, what can we do to have something to get people in and kind of kick off the excitement for the season? And so we kind of brainstormed some ideas, and Jen Meyer kind of was the idea guy behind that one, or girl behind it. And got a great board on the Booster Club. Charlotte's the vice president, and Amy, with people like Amy Underhill, her son, Clay's
going to be with us.
He's not even playing anymore, and she's still investing in it. That's when you see the club growing. Yeah. You're seeing that buy-in. And so we pulled together, and I'm the president, but I don't do a lot of work. I got good people around me, and I kind of make things happen whenever I need to. And so we threw that out there, and the community responded. We had I think we raised $2,500, $3,000 that night. Brought in a ton of water and Gatorade, which was that was one of the bigger goals. And it's just fun seeing the community step up and buy in. We had a cornhole tournament. Think we'll see another one of those, bigger next time. And one of the things we're realizing as a quarterback club is, I think we waited a little long to start our fundraising efforts. And so we're kind of moving towards a process of maybe doing more throughout the year versus waiting and doing it all at once. So we're hoping to see some more ideas out there, like a Meet the Owls or different things like that. And then the other side is it's fun for the community to get together and have a way to kind of kick the school year back off. I know we didn't want to interfere with the Ags Ice Cream Social. They do a great job having an ice cream social, and didn't want to really play into that too much. And so we tried to create something that was different. We didn't want to be on rodeo weekend, and Elgin Rodeo is a big thing. So we have a lot of great things happening in Elgin, and that's what we were looking at, trying to enhance that. And I think the kids enjoyed it, the community enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll see it again next year for the second annual Meet the Owls.
So
yeah, I think it turned out great. I mean, the way, because like I said, I mean, there wasn't, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there was much prep time to it to a certain degree. And for that amount of people and that amount of money to be raised just shows the buy-in of the community. And like I said, I mean, there were a ton of people there and everybody seemed to have fun and the kids had fun. I mean, that's also plays into it. That's the one thing that I do love about this team. And I go back to it a lot of times is the kids are good kids.
Right.
Cause I remember doing some of those things in college and even my high school team. I went to a private school in New Orleans. Everybody kind of goes to private schools and things like that. So it's not as much of a community feel like you have in some of these small towns in Oklahoma and Texas and some of that type of stuff. Because you go to a private school, so it's a little bit different. It's not a public school. It's not the town that you're related to and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes you lose some of that stuff. So looking back on it, if my high school would have had to do something like that, or my college team, I know of about 50 or 60 kids on the team that have been like, sunglasses on, why the hell are we here?
Right.
This is yada yada yada. But looking back on it and thinking of Jace running around with some little kids, tossing the football with 5 and 6 year old kids, and Trace doing some things, just and not just to point out those kids, but I mean all the kids. None of them were there. None of them were there thinking I'm too cool for this, and that's a pretty cool feeling too. And that's part of I'm glad that I'm associated with this type of community and things like that, because looking back on it, if there was things that we went to, even when I was in college, that, that the school hosted or the community hosted and things like that. And I would leave those things going, God, I can't believe my teammates are such jackass.
Mandatory good time.
Right. And so that's the cool part. But I mean, that also talks about what Coach White's doing, what the parents are doing, and and that ultimately leads to good kids. And when good kids have success, that's even more fun. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it's cool. Everybody wants their kids to be good kids, but if they're good kids and then they lose every game, then it kind of sucks. But I mean, that's cool.
What I like about it too is like you brought up Jace a while ago carrying some kid around or whatever, but I like about that when the older kids, the high school kids, talking to the younger kids, that's who they look up to. Like, when me and Jared talked about in wrestling before, like I can tell a kid to do anything 1,000,000 times. High schooler tell him one time, he's like, "Oh, really? Yeah, I'm going to do that." You know what I mean? But it's good for them to look after them type of people, good grades, stuff like that. Colin Donnelly, he showed the fourth hour practice today. Just the kids seeing him. You could see the, what's Colin doing here?
Right.
It's something special. I really do think it is, because a lot of times in schools you got the kids that look up to older kids, but them older kids may not be, like you said a while ago, may not be good kids. They may be looking up to them for the wrong reasons. But now we got kids that are good kids and they are successful. And so what are the kids going to do? They're going to look up to that. Oh, you stay out of trouble.
Right.
You play good football. You're good at school. That's the
route to go.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't blame Charles Barkley for back in the day saying I'm not a role model.
Right.
Because I mean, just because I'm good at sports doesn't mean I'm a good person. Doesn't mean that I'm a role model worthy type of person.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I mean, I also disagree with him that people do look up to you, so you got to also try and act a certain way. So that's what I say. Like I said, I mean, most of the kids, if not all of them, I haven't, in my 2 years here in Elgin, I have not run into one that I'm like, oh, what a turd.
Right.
And that.
Well, they are at home.
Yeah.
They are at home, but as long as they're acting good in public, they're happy.
Right. But if they know how to hide it and fake it, then hey, that's even better. I mean, that means that they're smart on every which way and they'll be successful in life.
They are still kids and they all have they're still growing up and learning.
Right.
And there are definitely times I'd like to choke mine down, but but he's a pretty good kid in public, so that's all I can ask most days.
So after we got done with our podcast the other day, I went home and I was thinking about something, and I called Jared, and I didn't realize what it was. It was almost just like 8 something, right? And I was trying to get a number for the rodeo, right? Because we was trying to sell some tickets out there. And Then I got off to talking about Jace just being a monster. You know what I mean? The kid's huge, man. Him and Keith, like I was telling him, and I told you in the podcast, I didn't realize how big that kid was. You know, I knew how big Jace was. I didn't know how big Keith was. You know what I mean?
Well, I talked about that. I mean, I don't know if you listened to it last week or not, but I mean, yeah, I mean, my college offensive line, left side of my offensive line, was not as big as those two. Like I said, now part of that was the type of scheme wise and whatnot, but I mean, they weren't. I mean, those two have a potential to play at the next level.
I think that's where, and I agree that those two, but I think that's to me, and looking back and, you know, being involved in Elgin football since 1990, you know, I graduated here in 95, and so thinking back to the players, we've had a spattering of people going on and play college, and Coach Wyatt and the coaches have continued that in small pockets, but I don't know that we've had as many potential college athletes on the field at one time as we do right now. Yeah. I think you can start looking. I know Matt's getting some great looks. Adesola, the Crabtrees are talking. Peyton Christians, I saw, had a great visit with the D3 school the other day. Keith's getting some very good looks and at some D2 schools, and then you start to get it into the junior class, and with Trace and Colin and Jace and Shay, all these kids. I think Adam Eaton is going to get some looks.
He's going to get some looks just for his size.
He's fitting that, and you know that's the next level. They're really into the measurements, and so he's going to get those looks, and so we have that ability for these kids, and I think ultimately that's what we're looking for. Is we want to create good citizens, but helping kids get on and play at the next level. Because I look at where I'm at today, and a lot of my success in life, I think, is because of football. Yeah. I think it's the team aspect and understanding to work in something, being a part of something that's bigger than yourself, and all of that is football. And seeing them do that and have that ability, and you know, the fun thing is we kind of laugh. You know, how much fun would it be if they could all end up somewhere at the same school at some point? It's not going to happen. Nobody can do it, but if one or two of them end up at the same spot, because that's that relationship they have. It's a relationship we have as parents, and continue on and getting to build that would just be fun.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, and I'm not going to label every single one of them, but I would think there's 15.
Oh, and I'm going to get into the sophomore class now with Ritson and Brody, and then you start. There's freshmen. I don't know if we've had as much pure athletic talent come up in a freshman class as we've seen. I mean, I was the one thing you went back to the scrimmage, and I was thinking, man, I don't know if I've seen as much team speed as we've had.
No, I know they were super impressed with the freshman running back Antuna.
Antuna,
Calentana, but we got.
And then
both go.
Then you got Little Myers, Middle Myers. You want to be technical. I mean, I think he's going to be the 3 or 4 middle linebacker. I mean, so he's going to play a ton as a freshman, and he'll play some of that spot where Brody and Peyton are kind of playing the slot now. I mean, Brody's one that I think is going to have an absolute breakout season. He was great as a freshman. Great safety as a freshman. But I think him now in that slot spot.
It's going to let him focus that athletic ability and really turn it loose.
Yeah, because when he got in the open field last year on a punt return or two, on an interception or two, if we start getting him the ball in that slot spot, I think Brody's going to pop a lot this year. And Peyton too. I mean, Peyton's going to play some of that slot spot too. But yeah, Brody's kind of my thought process right now, kind of maybe having that Ritson type pop year like Ritson had last year.
I compare Brody to what I was talking about Keith earlier. I mean, this will be year 3 of football. He's still he has less than 20 plays, 20 games under his belt from junior high and high school, and so there's a tremendous upside there when you start talking about kids like that, and then you add on the character that he is, his mom and dad, and the people. It's just fun to see those kids succeed and go out and compete and just smile and do it.
And I mean, him and Hunter back there. I mean, probably the 2 least imposing safeties in the state are probably 2 of the better safeties in the state. They're super smart kids. They're always in the right spot. Hunter is, with his wrestling background and things like that, I mean, is just he was kind of one of those unsung guys last year. Didn't get kind of as much pub necessarily as Toby did and things like that because Toby was a senior. But yeah, I mean, those two guys back there, I mean, they could be the best tandem safeties in the state. With the way, like I said, I mean, you got some great kids at the Carl Alberts and some of those type of things, D1 kids and whatnot. Brody's only a sophomore. Brody
But they're not going to play more
kid.
Solid fundamental football
Correct.
Than those two kids.
Right. Than the tandem of them together. And they complement each other well. Hunter's so smart and Hunter's so tough and whatever. And Brody's just kind of a freak of an athlete to a certain degree. And like you said, doesn't even know football yet. And that goes along. I mean, once he starts to learn the game, that's going to make him even better.
It'll be that old coach speak thing when the game starts slowing down for him.
Right. Yeah. That's all we talked about last week with Trace.
Yeah, right.
And that's that's only going to happen with Brody. And safety's a very similar spot to a quarterback spot because you can kind of see everything in front of him.
No, Hunter's like, obviously with wrestling, I know Hunter a lot, known him for a while, like you have as well. But he's tough as nails. He's smart and such a good kid, man. Such a good kid too. He comes to practice. Helps.
His dad's obviously bought in 100% too.
100%. Nate's a great guy, man.
Yeah.
Nate's a great guy. He's a really good dude.
He's another old Elgin kid that he's the same age as my brother and sister, and so he bounced back and forth between Elgin and Mac, and I really, really proud of Nathan Jackson and what he's done with the wrestling program, how he stepped in and the little league stuff, and again, kind of get to be dragged along the way, and help guide him, and he did a great job with it, and it's again we're paying dividends for that from a good little league program to a state championship dual team, and
100%.
Again. Probably a year early.
Yeah. One thing that I want to ask both of y'all as far as questions goes is, the obviously the town's behind the football team, and our kids are having interviews now and stuff like that. What do you think? Is there a need for media training for high school kids?
Yes, to a certain degree. I don't think they need their own separate coaches and whatnot. The one thing I'm not necessarily scared about any of our kids as far as when I talk to them or when in media outlets or anything, because for the most part, all the kids that the media will talk to, I know the parents and I know that at home things are, solid.
Right.
Everybody has their own whatever at home and things like that. But for the most part, 95% of it across the board, everything's solid there. The reason I say yes to that is kids don't talk to adults often. And then kids don't always understand and realize that anything you tell to an adult that is potentially interviewing you, they will put in. So might be something Colin ran into it at our media day. Asked what you potentially thought was a softball question as far as how is the team preparing, or the question I think was somewhere along the lines of, what does it feel like to be the hunted rather than the hunter now?
Right.
And I mean, I think if you would ask Colin today, he probably would have took the answer back. I think if you would ask Coach White, he probably would take the answer back, because he made a comment that I think he can back up. But he also made a comment that potentially led to some bulletin board material, where he made the comment of, it's kind of cool now because, I mean, obviously everybody thought we were going to be a pushover, but now everybody's scared to play us.
Right. Yeah.
A different wording of that, and it's hard to teach kids how to answer questions. So, I mean, even if you do have media training, that type of stuff could come out. I don't think he meant it in a nefarious, we're better than y'all should be scared of me talk.
Right.
But if I'm a coach for Mac, I'm probably playing that clip during Elgin week and saying, are we scared to play them?
Yeah.
They think we're scared to play them now. This little 4A school who just moved up, and like I said, innocent as it can be. And like I said, Colin didn't think twice about it. So I think maybe, yeah. But it's also kind of their kids. I mean, what else are we going to throw on their plate to make them adults? I mean, a lot of times those have to get approved through either the administration or the coach. So I think the coach can do a good job of always putting the ones that he knows are more comfortable with it.
Right.
Keith's fine with it. Keith can talk to anybody in America and have no problem with it. Jace is fine with it. Jace, can whatever. Trace, not sure. I mean, Trace is a little bit more of a quiet kid, reserved kid compared to some of the other ones. But he's an old coach's kid, things like that. So I think he would know. He would probably stick to some of the coach speak and like you said, kind of stick to some of that type of stuff. So I think some of it's on the adults in the room to make sure that you put the right kids in the right positions. Because adding media training to it, I mean, now you're asking. I mean, they're not getting, at least in Elgin,
right?
Now you get a kid that, let's say, like a Ritz and Meyer, who is now going to be a sophomore, had an unbelievable freshman year. He might start getting some national publicity as far as 3-star, 4-star, 5-star type of.
Right.
Now, if that's the case, then maybe you need to, because now national media is going to come in and try and start talking to mama and daddy and to him and this, that, and the other. And that may be a little bit different. You get some of the, like, I think it's more of an individual type of deal. I don't think you need to do it across the board for a whole entire team. But if you have a kid, and we did the same thing in college. I mean, we had kids that I played with in college that had no business of being in front of a microphone. And coach knew that. And, when some of them were our better kids, and, it would get thrown up, be like, hey, we need this kid. And, and they're like, or if it was, okay, we're going to take this one and you need to bring Vincent along with him, or you need to bring this kid along with him, and this, because we don't want you in the room alone with them, because they just couldn't handle it, because, there's no telling what's going to come out of their mouths. So like I said, a lot of it has to do with the adults in the room to make sure that they're putting the high school
set
kids,
set
them up for success. But the only time I think you potentially need to kind of coach it a little bit is when you get a kid that's going to get some national publicity, that it's not going to be, because even, I guess you could say I'm a media guy to a certain degree. I mean, I'm only going to talk to the kids that, like, I'm going to go through Chalmers for anything. I'm not going to pull a kid off to the side and, I might say, hey to Jace at a baseball game, stuff like that. But anything Jace tells me, I'm not going to go and report or say on a broadcast unless I know that it's kind of been approved, or it's kind of coach speak and some of that type of stuff. Because there's no reason to throw a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid on the bus if you said something, off color a little. But if you get to that national stage where you're a 4 or 5-star kid, then maybe you might want to bring somebody in. But I don't think it needs to be taught across the board to an entire team. Because
I think you could take some of your core kids that we're talking about, and we've actually talked about this a little bit at home. I think you give them some general guidelines, and I'm not talking formal. You got to look this way, do this.
Yeah.
But, to me, I've always viewed it, and it's a lot like my job being a firefighter, but football's a team game, and what I talked to Jace about is, if you're being interviewed, you're already the star of that situation. You're whatever that is, and he's probably not, because there's not a whole lot of offensive linemen getting that interview after the game. But whenever what it is, Trace or Adesola or Matt, I think it is nice for that team aspect. Matt has a great game. There ought to be some things thrown out there about offensive line. The coach is calling a good game. Receivers blocking for me downfield. The focus is already on Matt, and I'm not singling Matt out by any means. I'm just giving an instance, and I think some general things like that, and it's just good to pay your teammates back for that, because it takes 11 guys every play doing the right thing, and that's how you have success. And I think some general guidelines could really help all the kids maybe do a little better. But I don't know about formal training. I agree. I don't think that's what we're talking about.
But like even last night, I mean, Mike and
they did very well,
and Trey did fine. I mean, and Trey did a great job with the December. We talked about the December 3rd answer, but he also did, like I said, and we talked about that other answer where he's receivers, are you in the huddle, telling Trace, oh, I'm going to be open on this play? And he was like, no, I trust Trace that he's always going to find the right person open. And,
Right.
And I mean, like I said, that comes from the adults in the room because obviously, if Trey has ever been like, I was open on that play, Castro or Drum or somebody said, well, so is Mike, and that's why he threw the ball to Mike. So shut up and stop being a diva or whatever, whatever those words are. So I mean, like I said,
maybe the word is guidance, not training, is what.
I mean, Coach Chalmers, he talked about that a little bit when he talked about recruiting and stuff like that. Like social media. I think all media has to be encompassed and talked about at some point. But like you said, the adults in the room are probably going to handle that and talk to them and stuff. But then again, Jared, I mean, you were saying the same thing with guidance. Guidance is probably the better word. I do think it's. I personally, I never had no experience in doing any of this. I found when I started, the more I tried to write a script down or something like that, the less authentic it was. So that could be an overcoaching type thing. So I just stopped doing it that way. I got bullet points about stuff that I want to talk about, but we come in, we talk, stuff that comes up, we go from there.
And it gets better with experience.
Oh, 100%.
It's more genuine when it's that way.
As a fire chief, I'm sure you get interviewed a decent amount with KSWO and some of that type of stuff. And it gets better with experience. Microphones got thrown in my face when I was 15, 16 years old, being a high school quarterback and things like that, and being a decent recruit. And I said things at 14, 15, 16 years old that looking back on it now, it was like, oh, that was dumb, but then by the time I got to college, I was better. And then I'm no seasoned pro now, but at the end of the day, if I still do interviews at KSWO for some of the boards and things like that I'm on. And then like I said, being an OSN, I'm constantly on air and things like that. That's all live. So, you kind of learn to some of it comes with experience, but like I said, guidance is the best part. It all starts kind of with your home training to a certain degree. Because, all those kids on the team have Facebook pages, have Twitter pages.
That's a big
deal. But we talked about it last week. We talked about it last week with Noble.
Yeah.
They were wearing it. They were wearing his out on it.
Yeah. Noble last year so that's going to be a big game for a lot of these kids because that kid, and when they played him in baseball, that was a big deal because that, as soon as they won that game, the kid was all over, Twitter or wherever he was, TikTok or whatever, making fun of Elgin and this, that, and the other. So,
I think a lot of that stuff too is like I think about that stuff, but kids nowadays grew up with social media, so they're gonna have a better idea. But I can't look at myself, when I was, that age. What would I do with Facebook, Twitter, and all that stuff? I don't know. I would have been in trouble.
Oh, if we had social media when I was
quarterback in
college, I don't know if I'd have made it through the year.
Well, y'all, we've been going for about an hour and a half right now. So about this point, Jared, is there anything that you want to say, anything you want to talk about, anything you would like to end it on?
I just think we got to continue to invest in our kids, and I think that's what athletics is about. You get into debates, you hear different things, but all in all, I think the athletic program, the football program, it's all about making better citizens, and you can't learn everything in life out of a school book. Yeah. And I think that's really where football is filling that gap. And we're talking about football right now, but it's really all sports, and really just invite Elgin out. Whoever's listening to this, if you want to have some fun on a Friday night, we'll see you next Friday, September 1st. I challenge you to get there early because seats are going to go quick, and we made more room. We moved the band down, and I'm excited to be able to hear the band down where they're at. And sometimes it's hard up in the booth to hear. And Vincent can probably say that. You're right up above them. The sound's going away from you, so we're going to hear them. Bring your jugs if you got them. We're made 100 jugs the other day, and I hear there may be a shirt being made, and it may be a little bit of tongue-in-cheek shirt, but there may be a Shake Your Jug shirt coming with Elgin jugs on it, and I think it's something we're being known by, and I think it's great to have the crowd support. I know Midwest City loved our jugs, and so we're excited about making noise and putting Elgin on the map in football in 5A this year.
Shake Your Jug shirt. I want one.